2 years ago, my journey into building backyard ice rinks began, triggered by a massive snowfall in the Midwest. It seemed unavoidable that our backyard should transform into an ice rink. The process was challenging, involving days of tamping snow and spraying it with water. After 2 weeks of dedicated effort, I was happy to look and test my first backyard ice rink. Realizing it's a bit too small, I even tried to extend it, but ended up with just a small extra patch. Then, next year, I tackled the project with a new perspective of making the most of every bit of space available in my backyard. That required the use of a liner and investing either a couple thousands of dollars into an ice rink kit or going the DIY route and spending just a few hundreds. I chose the latter and used plywood and framing wood. I've learned some lessons while building the rink last year, and the most important one was to find the best placement of the rink. To remove any guesswork, I turned to a laser level to create some sort of a topographic map of my backyard. Last year's placement was not great because one area of the lawn was significantly higher than the rest, resulting in nearly an 8-inch difference in water depth. In the highest areas of the lawn, a 3-inch water depth translated to a wasteful excess of 11 inches or more in the lowest section. The numbers revealed that all I needed for a better rink position was to shift it downward and to the left by a few feet, effectively reducing the variation between the lowest and the highest points to about 4 inches. With less water needed, not only do I save money, but the freezing process is also quicker. Another important thing I overlooked last year was giving the lawn a good mow with bagging before putting in the liner. Skipping this step left small twigs on the ground, which ended up leaving impressions on the liner. While not all of them poked holes in the liner, they did cause some damage. So this year I mowed the lawn low, and boy was I lucky because the next day we got hit hard with a lot of snow that had to be cleared before the boards could be installed. While not the best idea to use a snowblower on a lawn, it worked quite well and the lawn was clear in no time. When it comes to the rink shape, many folks opt for a rectangular one, which works fine. However, I wanted to bring a special touch by adding a 3-piece transition of 4-foot boards on the corners. This aims to mimic the experience of playing hockey on a real rink where the puck naturally follows the curve of the boards when shot along the sides. For the remaining boards, I used standard 8-foot plywood cut to a width of 12 to 14 inches to accommodate the slope of the yard. The biggest savings come from making the boards yourself if you choose the do-it-yourself route. Plastic boards typically cost about $40 for a 4-feet section, while plywood is around $6 for an 8-foot piece cut to a width of 12 inches. For my 27 by 55 rink, I need approximately 170 linear feet of boards. For plywood, I ended up paying around $130, whereas buying new plastic boards would have set me back around $1,800. The brackets are made from 2x4s joined together with exterior construction screws. I made around 30 of them last year and reusing them this year as well. They connect the boards together using 2 or 3 wood screws on each side. To withstand the water pressure when the rink is full, I drilled a 3/4 inch hole at an angle in each bracket. This is where a 1/2 inch diameter rebar, about 15 to 18 inches long, will be hammered into the ground. The cost of one bracket, including the rebar, is roughly $3. With about 30 brackets needed and considering the cost of a new bracket is around $12 to $15, I likely saved about $300 just on brackets alone. Just as I was getting ready to set up the liner and flood the rink, my area was hit with another heavy snowfall. This time though, it was a wet and heavy snow, causing my snowblower to not work. That meant I had to resort to some serious manual labor. However, with a bit of creativity, we came up with a solution: make big snowballs out of the wet snow and use them to build snow forts. With the help of my kids and a few more kids from the neighborhood, we managed to clear all the snow from the rink in just a couple of hours. The kids had a blast building the snow forts, and I got the rink area cleared, so it was definitely a win-win situation. The liner is likely the priciest individual component of my DIY ice rink. A 65 by 35 foot liner from Ironsleek cost me nearly $200. The plan was to reuse it, and when I packed up the ice rink in the spring, I carefully examined it and marked 3 holes with a permanent marker to be fixed later. Well, that later turned into I forgot, and this winter, when laying down the liner, I was unable to find my marks. I even did a grid pattern search but came up empty-handed. I guess that night I was too tired, because a few days later, while the rink was full of water, I realized that the marks were on the other side of the liner. Anyway, with or without holes, I was determined to flood the rink, which I did. It took about 10 to 12 hours in total, and I stopped when the water reached about 2.5 to 3 inches in the highest areas. I used spring clamps to secure the liner to the boards to prevent any water from spilling outside of the rink. And as any woodworker out there would tell you, the more clamps you have, the better. One day after flooding, I noticed that the leaks I didn't patch were causing issues. I was losing water, but it was not too bad. Even so, I wanted to give it a try to patch them, and the night before things were set to freeze, I put on some rubber boots and got into the water to search for the holes. Luckily, I found one and was able to patch it using some flex tape. Surprisingly, it worked underwater and in freezing temperatures. Even though it was just one hole, I believe it made the difference. It took approximately 3 days for the entire rink to freeze completely, with temperatures dipping as low as negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit at times. When I thought the rink was ready, we had another snowfall, so I used my snowblower to clear away all the snow to prevent any ripples that could form if the small amount of unfrozen water somehow made its way onto the surface and mixed with the snow. After I removed all the snow from the rink, I resurfaced the ice with my mini Zamboni. The next morning, everything was frozen solid, so it was time to install in the kick plates to protect the liner. They are made from the same plywood as the sideboards and are about 6 to 8 inches wide. Installing the kick plates is my least favorite part because it's usually freezing outside. Each plate requires rolling and tucking in the remaining portion of the liner, then clamping the plate and screwing it in place. The screws have to go above the rolled up liner to avoid puncturing it. For the next year, I have a new idea I want to try out. I want to design something that will allow me to hang the kick plates from the boards and let them sit in the rink water. When the water freezes, it will hold them in place. That way, I won't have to do any back-breaking work in the extremely cold weather. For hockey goals, I chose some durable steel frame 3x2 feet goals from Bauer. They were a perfect fit for my ice rink. However, there was one problem. There were no attachments or adapters included to fix the goals onto the ice. But no worries, I found a simple solution. I cut a few pieces of 3/4 inch PVC and then designed and 3D printed an adapter to connect the PVC to the bottom of the goals, and this was enough to hold the nets securely in place. I did some rough measurements and centered the goals as best as possible. Then I used a Forstner drill bit to make some holes in the ice, being careful not to go too deep and tear the liner. The goals held great and were easy to remove before cleaning and resurfacing the ice with my mini Zamboni. And the last finishing touch is installing lights. Last year, I attempted to install string lights on poles but quickly gave up because they didn't emit enough light. Instead, this year I repurposed some floodlights I already had, and I'm quite impressed with the results. I used 3/4 inch metal conduit and attached the floodlights to it. Then I drilled some holes in the frozen ground and pushed the conduit into them. Managing the cables was a bit tricky, but in the end it looked good and the light was sufficient for some fun times. Now that the ice rink's finished, with hockey goals up and lights set, you might think that there's nothing else to do but just have fun, right? Well, not quite. Keeping the ice in good shape for fun times also means some maintenance work. It's crucial to mention that this maintenance routine should be followed after each use. Leaving the ice shavings overnight could cause them to freeze into bumps. At the very least, using a floor squeegee to level them out is necessary. My rink can endure medium to heavy usage for nearly 2 hours before it needs resurfacing. I make sure to remove the ice shavings with a floor squeegee and then dispose of them outside the rink. This prevents any bumps or ridges from forming in the ice. Then I use my trusty mini Zamboni, which is connected to my utility sink, and start pushing hot water onto the ice. It's crucial to adjust the water flow just right. Too little and not enough bumps and ice shavings melt, but too much can make resurfacing difficult. Every time I resurface the ice, the results are fantastic, and the ice rink looks amazing. And let's not forget the most important part, having fun. After putting in all the hard work to get everything ready, the ice rink will only last a few weeks and sometimes just a few days if the weather does not cooperate. My kids couldn't wait for it to be ready, and we had a fantastic time playing hockey with their friends. We cherished every moment on the rink. After 2 straight days of playing hockey for over 2 hours each day, I discovered muscles I didn't even know I had. But as with all good things, it eventually came to an end. The weather took a turn for the worse, shifting from a bone-chilling -20 degrees Fahrenheit to a milder 40 degrees Fahrenheit in just about 2 weeks. In total, we were able to enjoy the rink for a little over a week this year. Nonetheless, what an amazing week it was. While I wish the rink lasted longer, I enjoyed the project and the fun it provided. These are the memories I hope my kids will cherish, treasuring the time we spent together setting up the rink and also playing on the ice. Thanks for joining me on this journey of backyard ice rink building. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more exciting content.